Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I'm going to do a video that I've actually been planning to do for about 2 years, but with the recent release of a remastered 40th anniversary of his debut album, I decided it's time to do a CD Junkie episode on my second favorite vocalist of all time, Tim Finn. He comes in number 2 after Elvis Presley. Tim Finn. I have been a fan since the first time I heard Split Enz, which would have been in 1979, and I have followed his career. There are a few holes, a few gaps in my collection. Some of them are things that never came out on CD. Some of them are live albums. I'm only really going to talk about the studio releases on this episode, like I normally do on all my episodes of CD Junkie. Tim Finn, glorious, wonderful voice. Boy, when he hit with Split Enz in 73, 74, it was one of the most beautiful instruments I'd ever heard. I mean, I didn't hear it until about 79, but beautiful and clear, and he could be emotive and emotional, and he could be joyful and playful, and just incredible vocalist. Now, the thing about Tim Finn is he's been involved in a lot of different projects over the years, from Split Enz to Crowded House to, he's made albums with Phil Manzanera. He's just done a ton of stuff, but I'm really going to focus just on his solo career. I am going to talk about his other releases, but I'm going to really focus on his solo albums. Now, here in the U.S., Neil Finn is the more popular of the two brothers. Well, Tim actually was the leader of Split Enz, and once Phil Judd, guitar player and co-songwriter with Tim, had left Split Enz, he needed to fill in that gap, and he brought in his younger brother, Neil. And of course, Neil eventually began writing his own songs. Then he almost sort of took over Split Enz at the very, very end before breaking the band up and then forming Crowded House. And we all know how that played out. Still one of the most popular bands from New Zealand, still touring and still receiving kudos and just legions of devoted fans. But let's talk about his older brother, Tim, who I think deserves just as much love and his attention. But he's much more low profile than Neil. So before I dip into his solo albums, let's go over some of the stuff that he's been involved with over the years outside of his solo albums. And you'll see what a vast catalog he has. So let's take a look at that, and then we'll get back and we'll talk about Tim Finn's solo albums. Okay, this came out in 1979, but it actually features their earliest recordings from 73, 74. This is called Beginning of the Ends. Mental Notes from 1975. Incredible album. This is the digital remaster. Second Thoughts, produced by Phil Manzanera, came out in 1976. Wonderful album. Re-recordings of songs from Mental Notes. Dysrhythmia, 1977, the first album to feature Neil Finn after the departure of Phil Judd. Incredible. An odd collection of great pop tunes. The next album, Rootin' Tootin' Lootin' Tapes. Actually, this was recorded in 78, didn't come out till years later. This was in between the Dysrhythmia and Frenzy, and is the perfect musical link. This is the 2 CD edition through the fan club. Incredible. Frenzy, 1979, my favorite Split Enz album. And here is the remix of that same album, sonically very different. And this is just a great album. And then, of course, True Colors came out in 1980. This is the album with I Got You, Shark Attack, What's the Matter with You. This is the 40th anniversary edition right here, and it's got some live bonus tracks on it. The next album was Waiata, and it's known as Corroboree in Australia. This is the remix version of it, so you get 2 different versions. Time and Tide from 1982, incredibly fascinating, wonderful album. Blew my mind when it first came out. Conflicting Emotions, album cover by Phil Judd. Not that great of an album, but still very good. And then now Tim isn't on this album. He has split by this time, Split Enz, no pun intended, but I figured that, I'd show it anyway. There have been some great Split Enz compilations. This is my favorite. It's a 2 CD set, and it spans their entire career. Absolutely wonderful, wonderful music. This is one here that came out with the first box set and features some rarities, unreleased tracks. And this came out with a Rear Ends box set. And this features some B-sides, demos, non-album tracks. You have to buy the Odds and Ends and Rear Ends box set. Other Ends is a compilation of solo and offshoot bands and Split Enz, super rare stuff. Lots of great stuff on there. Tim Finn solo, Phil Judd, etc. And then, of course, Tim Finn, this is his only album as a member of Crowded House, although he has appeared on other Crowded House albums. But this is an incredible, incredible album from 1991 and should be owned by every human being on the planet, just like everything else I talk about in this video. The Finn Brothers, this was actually an album that came out in 1995. They were called Finn back then. And here is the expanded 2 CD edition that came out pretty recently. In America, this album was released as the Finn Brothers. Their second album was credited to the Finn Brothers, and this is a limited edition that contains a bonus DVD, and that came out 2004. Incredible. I like it better than the first one. Alt was a trio featuring Andy White and Liam from Hot House Flowers and Tim, and this came out in 1995. And Tim wanted to do it again, but Liam wasn't available, so it's just Andy White and Tim Finn. They put an album called H.E. in the year 2023, and that's a very, very, very fine album. Enzo was a project that came out in 1996, and it's orchestral versions of Split Enz songs that Neil and Tim sing on. Eddie Rayner arranged them. But other people sing on that as well. Tim recorded 2 albums with Phil Manzanera, and of course, those came out in 2021 and 2022. And Forenzics is an album of Tim Finn and Eddie Rayner, and they take little samples of old Split Enz music and they create new masterpieces with them. Incredible. Well, now that you're sort of caught up with Tim Finn, let's start with solo albums. His first solo album is called Escapade. Came out in 1983, and this here is a wonderful album. It's produced by Mark Moffett and Ricky Fattar. Now, how strange is it that one of the co-producers of the first album was both a Beach Boy and a Ruddle? But this is a beautiful album. It's really kind of all the quirkiness of Split Enz is sort of smoothed out on this album. It's a great collection of pop songs, showcases his wonderful voice. It's really a wonderful, beautiful album. Now, I have this version. I have the original issue of the CD, and that's signed by Tim. You can see there in silver there. And then I have the brand new 40th anniversary remaster. They really, really kind of blew it. Now, it sounds fantastic. You can hear separation in the instruments, and it sounds really wonderful and full. But there are some non-album tracks that have been around. Now, in the American version of Escapade, there's a song called Below the Belt, which I didn't really care for too much. It had replaced a song called Grand Adventure, which was on the Australian-New Zealand version. And so Grand Adventure is in the original lineup. There's also a B-side called Another Chance that didn't make the album, and neither of those songs were added. I thought this was a great opportunity to do that. And then there were a couple live songs recorded with his Escapade band. But that doesn't stop me from praising the fact that it's still a wonderful album. I could get, I don't have those 2 songs, or, Another Chance and Below the Belt on CD. But I'm grateful for what we do have, and that's this wonderful remaster of the Escapade album. By the way, on Escapade, it features a mandolin played by Vince Gill, who at that time I think was solo, but he was in Pure Prairie League, and now, of course, he's a member of the Eagles. Now, the next thing he did is he appeared in the movie The Coca-Cola Kid. And in that movie, he performed, he was a musician, and he was supposed to be writing a Coca-Cola theme. So he had performed that song, and also the end theme was a song called Home for My Heart. Now, Home for My Heart was eventually released on a compilation called Other Ends, which is a collection of Split Enz and solo rarities, but the Coca-Cola jingle was never actually officially released, or was it? It appears as a unlisted bonus track on this rarities compilation that came out on Amoeba Records, as in Amoeba, the record store in LA, San Francisco, and Berkeley. Greatest record store ever, in my opinion. And you can get it. It's an unlisted track at the very end of the live version of Salt of the Sea, which is on this. So you can get that. So Tim Finn fans out there, track that CD down. Anyway, let's get back to his catalog. His next album came out in 1986, and that is called Big Canoe. And this was a completely different beast. Tim went a little bit more serious. He had this poet-writer named Jeremy Brock write lyrics for the album, so it's very, very serious. Nick Launay produced the album, and Nick Launay is a really different, bombastic producer compared to Ricky Fataar and Mark Moffat. And this is a very interesting album. It's very dramatic. It's bold. It's a huge step forward. And it is melodic. It is very Tim Finn, that wonderful voice shining through. Phil Judd actually appears on songs off this. Phil Judd, of course, formerly of Split Enz. And I think it just took people by surprise. They were expecting something more pop. This is something more serious, but there's still a lot of great songs on it. Now, the next thing he did in 1987 was he did the soundtrack to a movie called Les Patterson Saves the World. And to my knowledge, that's never come out on CD. A couple songs have come out on CD, including on that Other Ends compilation that I told you about a little bit earlier. But his next solo album came out in 1989, and this is the self-titled album. This is after Crowded House had their success, so he sort of reverted to that sort of acoustic sound, brought in producer Mitchell Froom, who had produced Crowded House, and they recorded this album called Tim Finn. And this is sort of, going back to sort of a more rootsy, what they now know as Americana, more acoustic guitars, stripping away the keyboards and the overproduction of Big Canoe. And it's a really cool collection. If you love Crowded House, you'll probably dig this. Lots of nice songs on it. His band is like Jerry Murata on drums, Tony Levin on bass, David Rhodes on guitar. Those are the mainstays in Peter Gabriel's bands, and they've played on a lot of great prog and rock albums as well. So it's a nice, well-rounded, great pop album. Then he went on to join Crowded House for the Woodface album, and then leave. And then his next solo album was called Before and After. This album came out in '93. Lots of producers on this. Clive Langer and Alan Winstanley produced some songs. Tim Finn produced a song with Ricky Fataar. And there's, different variations of musicians on this. This album also features the members of Alt, which is Andy White, and then Liam from Hot House Flowers. Both those guys are on here, as well as Hot House Flowers are on this album as well. But you've also got Michael Dan Elson plays on the album, and Michael Dan Elson was in a band called Schnell Fenster, which featured 3 former members of Split Enz. So it's all still intertwined somehow. Steve Naive is on this album. Eddie Rayner is on this album. Betty Bright from Deaf School is on the album, doing a spoken word bit. So Before and After, '93, lots of great songs on it. It goes from the sort of acoustic sound of the previous album, and then adds more elements to it, more rhythms. He's sort of expanding his musical vision. Now, the next thing I have here is a soundtrack to Steel City, which was a production by the Sydney Theatre Dance Company. And most of this is instrumental, but there are some vocal songs on it. And they are all nice and very different, very rhythmic, as you would probably expect from a theater dance company. But yeah, really, really nice collection. Steel City by Tim Finn came out in 1998. His next album was produced by Jay Joyce, who's produced a lot of Americana albums and stuff. And it is an album called Say It Is So from 1999. This is going back to the sound of the Tim Finn album, back to the rootsy sound. Great songs. The production's a little harder than that album, and sometimes it sounds like he's straining his voice a little bit, but still, it's that Tim Finn voice and, collection of great songs. And I know that he toured for this album. I saw him on that tour. I also saw him on the tour for the self-titled album, as well as seeing him in Split Enz a couple times and him in the Finn Brothers. So let's go to 2001, and this is an album called Feeding the Gods, and very similar to Say It Is So, from 1999, and produced by Jay Joyce again. It's Americana, but it can get pretty rockin' as well. Great collection of songs by Mr. Tim Finn. In 2006, Tim Finn released Imaginary Kingdom, which I think is quite possibly his best since Escapade, and I'd say half the week, I actually think it's better than Escapade. Such an emotional album. Holy. Produced by Bobby Huff. It's an incredible collection of songs that it's so heartfelt, so warm, so emotional, so powerful that it's really hard to deny the magic of Tim Finn on this. And again, his voice has become a little more fragile. He's not as loud and boisterous, but man, it just makes for a more intimate experience. And Imaginary Kingdom, really, truly an amazing album. So in 2008, out comes the album The Conversation. I think this is right on par with Imaginary Kingdom as being, Imaginary Kingdom, like I said, ties with Escapade as my favorite Tim Finn solo album. This is a really, really close second, if not a three-way tie. Beautiful and warm and gentle. This is co-produced by Ethan Allen and Eddie Rayner from Split Enz, but it also features Split Enz's very early violinist, Miles Goulding, on the album. The songs are just tender and beautiful. When I talk about Tim Finn, these two and Escapade are the albums I really, really am drawn to, and I, really recommend to a lot of people to check out. Now, think about 2008. It was a very busy year because I think that there was he did some sort of musical called Poor Boy, and there was some kind of soundtrack that came out that featured Split Enz songs and Tim Finn solo songs and, nice mixture. But there was also, as I had mentioned earlier, that Rarities disc. And this features like 3 live songs, some demos, and it features a few Rarities B-sides, like Cruel Black Crow is on this, as well as Tim's solo version of Throw Your Arms Around Me, which was written by Mark Seymour from Hunters and Collectors. And, of course, Mark's brother Nick is the bass player of Crowded House. There we go. And then as a hidden bonus track, you get the Coca-Cola jingle on that as well. And his most recent solo album was The View is Worth the Climb. This is sort of, in some ways, going back to that Say It Is So, Feeding the God sound, which is a little bit heavier than Imaginary Kingdom and The Conversation. And his voice a little more fragile, so it sounds like it's sort of, trying to battle the elements, so to speak, but still sounds wonderful. And as you know, there's already Split Enz compilations, and there's a couple Tim Finn compilations, but the one that I prefer is North, South, East, West. It is a 2 CD collection, and it spans his entire career, including Split Enz and including solo stuff. There's, I think, 3 new songs on here, 2 or 3 new songs on it. There's a couple re-recordings, so it's a nice collection. If you want the most perfect Tim Finn collection, you're going to have to buy every CD that I've talked about in this video. So anyway, I've already talked about all the stuff he did before his solo career. I just talked about his solo career, and now let's give it a listen to his solo career. I'm only touching on most of the studio releases that I just talked about. No live, no Split Enz, but at the end I threw in Forenzics because I think it's such a great little concept, so you can hear it since it's so intriguing. So sit back, relax, give this a listen, and I will see you on the other side.
There's a fraction too much friction. There's a fraction too much friction, yeah. Staring at the embers of my memory, staring at the embers. They're all that's left of me. Don't know where I'm going. There's nowhere. I met a girl who wasn't quite right. She wandered off alone in the night. She understands. Don't wanna go where there's no Coca-Cola. out of this world with you, searching for life I never knew. Out of this I'll pray for you to sing when the noise is deafening. Yeah, I'll be listening still. I've done my time. I was searching but the trail went cold. I've done my time, it's not too long. When I'm with you I feel strong. Even when the darkness falls, we're moving on. This world can offer nothing to me. They keep turning up the sound, but I'd rather be somewhere you and me can be found. All this and more, desire leads me to your door. What else is left for but to leave you wanting more? You're outside the times, had to break away. Your old friends cut you right in half, or something like that. Shut the door. Shades are securely drawn. A magic place hedged with roses. I drank the beauty, walking down a road. Time stands still forever. No time to count the.
Well, that's it. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I hope it inspires you to check out the music of Tin Fin. I know that I am missing stuff in my collection. And, you know, of course, you can always let me know in the comments below what I'm missing or what maybe you didn't know existed. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, to ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.